In today's video, we're going to break down why some players can absolutely perform when it counts and others can't. Whether they do the same work on ice or even the same work off ice, why is it that some players rise to the occasion and others seem to grip their stick too tight and can't get it done? On top of it, I'm going to break down a series of questions that I take my players through to help them break through that glass ceiling, and I'm even going to share a little tool with you so you can help your players as well. Now, today's video is going to be great. Whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, or a parent, we're going to be peeling back the curtain of the mental performance that our players must master so that they can ultimately get it done when it matters most. This is X7 Hockey Talk. My name is John Swanson, and you'll see my players and alumni skating in the USHL, playing college Division I, Division III, AHL, NHL, and even the Olympics. Now, we're going to jump in today, and we're going to take a departure from the hard skills, skating, stick handling, passing, and we're going to talk a lot about what happens between the ears and why some players can't get it done. Why can't they reach that peak performance when it matters most? They put in the same work. They show up to the same practices. They do the same lifts. They put the same time in the garage, but for whatever reason, self-doubt, something's creeping in and it's holding them back. It's throttling them back from being at their best. And I'm going to show you a specific tool that I use with my players to help them break through that so that they can have the confidence to be at their best. Now, before we jump into it, I want to talk a little bit about something I experienced the other day. We were at a game and I had just wrapped up coaching our team and I had some players playing the next game. And so I was going to stick around and watch. I had some time to kill in between my two games. And so I was sitting there in the heated area because I was honestly freezing. The rink was so cold and I wanted to warm up. And so I was standing kind of off to myself and there was a handful of dads about 10 feet away. And the puck drops and about a minute into the game, I hear this dad explode. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they're playing him at D. He has no clue what he's doing at D. Now, keep in mind, these players are 8 years old that I was watching and I was thinking to myself, well, of course he doesn't know what he's doing at D. He's 8. How is he going to learn? He has to learn. Part of that learning curve is in practice, and part of it is going to be in a game setting. They have to go through it. We want to develop well-rounded players. And so I don't say anything because it's, essentially not my spot to talk. I'm just sitting there watching the game, watching my players skate, and all of a sudden, it happens again. Now we're going off about how the team doesn't pass, the coach doesn't know what they're doing. They're 8 years old, keep in mind. And so eventually, I had enough and I didn't say anything. I just walked out of the room. I removed myself from the situation and I just went and stood in a different spot in the rink. And now I'm sitting there for no more than 30 seconds and I hear these moms going off. Oh my gosh, I can't believe, why does he do that? He doesn't even know how to score goals anymore. Again, same 8-year-old. And the funny part is the kid actually made a pretty good play. He took the puck down wide, he pivoted to the middle and then cut back to the wall and then hit a trailing forward. It was an awesome hockey play. But see, he wasn't scoring the way his mom wanted him to score. And I literally thought to myself, what in the world is going on? Like, we wonder why when it comes time to play and it matters most, our kids can't get it done. And then we look at the environment we're bringing them up in and we wonder why this is happening. Well, just remove yourself from the situation and just listen, and it's right there in front of us. And I believe there's a way to fix it. Part of it is coaches need to coach, players need to play, and parents need to cheer, and that's it. Now, that may never happen, so instead, let's work through a tool that I use to help my players kind of work past those mental constraints. And so the tool I'm going to share with you is what I call Own It, and it's a development from Ray Dalio, Tony Robbins, and a handful of others, and something that I've kind of put together, and it's a series of 6 questions. Now, before we jump into the 6 questions and the tools specifically, what we have to understand is that there's 3 events in a player's career, and they happen simultaneously that will always be happening. And this really is what causes a player to either shine or not to shine. And it's all about emotional energy, which sounds a little bit odd, but if you think about it, what happens is a series of 3 events. Event 1 is an event happens, a trigger. And it could be a player, scoring a goal, but it also could be a bad penalty. It could be the ref yelling at him. It could be a teammate yelling at him. It could be another person chirping them. It could be their parents. But that event happens, and what it does is it elicits an emotion. And that emotion is either positive or it's negative. And it creates an energy inside of them, and it instantly creates self-dialogue, self-talk. And so what we call this self-dialogue is storytelling. And what they're doing inside of their head is they're justifying their emotions. And what's interesting about there's actual clinical research that shows that when we're young, say 8 years old, 7 years old, even 10 years old, we experience these 3 events. But what's interesting about it is that the story that we create around the event, because we have to box it up so we understand these emotions. If we don't, it's essentially like a bouncy ball in a glass box. It doesn't make sense to us. And so we work really hard mentally to put parameters around what we're feeling and why we're feeling it. But what's fascinating is that they have proven that an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 10-year-old will not actually put a story around it that's factual. They will just put a story around it. And a lot of times it's fiction. And so we grow up this entire life believing things to be true, because the more we tell ourselves these things, the more we think that it's our actual truth. And so we have this ball and chain of mental performance, almost like a throttle that's holding us back, a brake per se. And the interesting part is none of it was ever true. But because we were so young and we didn't have the emotional skills to work through it, we believe it to be our truth. And so there's an exercise that I take our players through to kind of work through those past moments, but also current moments. And so it's a series of 6 steps. And so what's interesting about this is what I just shared is you as a parent or you as a coach, you have experienced those same things and you have those same truths, but they're actually fiction. And if you take this and you actually work through it, you'll actually break through those limiting beliefs. And that limiting belief is what allows you to take your game to the next level. And it could be in work, it could be in your marriage, it could also be on the ice. So the first one is, we call it the problem. And so it's, what is the problem, obstacle, or trigger that you face? So we just have to put it out there. Like, what is going on right now? And so I'll ask this question to my player. What's currently going on? What's the big obstacle we're working through right now? And I need them to verbalize it. They have to get it out of their head and actually put it out in front of them. Otherwise, we can't work on it. The second thing is we want to establish the emotions and the feelings, okay? We don't necessarily want to make our decisions based off of it, but we have to get the feelings out there. And this was the hardest thing for me growing up, because I wasn't a big feelings guy. If you know me, that's not how I roll. However, it's important to get the feelings out there. And so what I'll say is, how does this make you feel? And then the second part of this is why, right? And so I'll take you through role playing. Let's say that I was playing and I turn the puck over to another person on their team and they go in and score the game-winning goal. We lose the championship. Okay. So the problem I was facing is we just lost. And how does it make me feel? Well, I feel like a failure. I feel like a terrible hockey player, and I have all this negative self-talk going on, and I'm such a bad player. And why I feel this way is because I let my team down. I let my parents down. I let myself down, and I feel really bad about it because I wanted to win, and I wanted to be the person that helps my team, not the person that let my team down and the reason we lost, right? This is all self-dialogue. And so the third component now is what we call story, assumptions, and conclusions. And so what I'll ask the individual is, what is the story or conclusion or assumption you're drawing from this emotional trigger? And that would be, I'm a terrible hockey player. I make terrible plays. I can't get it done, and I should just quit hockey, right? And that's me being a little bit dramatic, but this is stuff players actually think and say. And so the next question is very pivotal. Is this true? And most likely when they're emotionally charged, they're going to say yes, right? Because they're all fired up. Now, second to that is going to be, or third question to follow that back up, is going to be, can you absolutely know it's 100% true? Right? And so now we're starting to calm this person down a little bit and kind of pull them out of their emotional reaction. And so I would be like, well, did you make any other good plays out there? Yeah, I had an assist and I set up this play and that play was good. Okay, cool. So now we're making groundwork, right? It's not all so bad. That moment was not optimal, but there was other good things that happened. So how do you feel when you believe this story to be true, right? And again, we go back and say, well, I feel really bad. Like, I want to be a teammate. I want to be somebody that my coach trusts. And I want my parents to be proud. And I want to be proud of my game, okay? And so that's the first layer, or the first half of the equation. It's the first 3 things. Again, it's the problem, the emotions, feelings, and then it's the story, assumptions, and conclusions. Now, this is the key, where we take them down into a factual state and we get them refocused on their goals and aspirations, which is pivotal. So this is called the perspective shift. This is step 4. So what is the opposite version of this story, right? So what is the opposite of you're a terrible hockey player? And what we're going to do here is we're going to look for evidence of them being a great hockey player. What are the things you do well? Well, today I had great stick on the puck and I played really physical and I had some really good breakout passes. Awesome, right? So now we're starting to essentially be a lawyer and we're stacking evidence of, we have the negative evidence and now we have all the good. We got to go find that good. And we almost need 10x the good to squash the bad. From there, what evidence do you have to support this version of the story, right? So we're finding this story of you being a great player and we're pulling in all these evidence, and we're not going to just pull from this moment, we're going to pull from time. Okay. Number 5 is going to be clarity. So now that we have evidence in the story that it's, essentially you have 2 different styles of player that you were, now we got to get clarity of how to get back on track with our goals. And so I'll ask the player, what do you truly want out of this situation? And this is where we describe where they want to go. Well, I want to be a player that's trusted. I want to be a player that my teammates want on the ice. I want to be a player that I go out there and I make plays and I'm proud of the game I have. My parents are proud of the game I have. Okay. What do you need to get what you truly want? Well, I need to get my head up and take a look before I make that pass. Oh, so in that situation, it was your mistake that you made. It wasn't your teammates. It wasn't somebody else's. Now they're owning their mistake. Yes, I made the pass. I didn't have my head up and I was nervous, and I got to learn to stay calm in the big moments. Good. Now we have actionable things they can work on as a player. Now what I'll do is I'll have them write immediate action plan. And they could say things like, I'm going to work on heads up stick handling. I'm going to work on breathing in between my shifts. I'm going to work on, visualizing that pass and going tape to tape. I'm going to work on making sure I make eye contact and find their blade before I do it, right? So we work on all the actionable things that they can control, the controllables. That's very important. So now it's going to be step 6. And this is where we put it all together. And this is where the transformation happens and allows the player to work through it. And so it's called reflection, revelation, revolution equals evolution. And see, how does a player work into a state of peak performance? Is they're a person that learns from their mistakes and they do it really quickly. Now, the part I didn't put at the very start of this video, but it's very important, so let's talk about it right now, is that when players grip their stick too tight, they haven't been able to work through those past emotions. And so when the pressure's on, right, and it's a game 7 or it's playoffs or it's tryouts, they go back to their negative self-talk because they never worked through the 4th, 5th, and 6th step of the Own It series. They just stayed in that emotional storytelling and they never drew the facts of why they are a good player. And that's why this is so important, is it helps squash away the negative self-talk and it has them build confidence so that when they're in those moments, they don't get nervous, they become confident in their skills and abilities. And so what we'll do is work through 3 questions here. It says, what has the problem, obstacle, or trigger taught you? This is key because if they don't learn from the mistake, they will repeat it. Now, hockey is a game of mistakes, but we want to avoid making the same mistake twice. We want to have a quick learning curve, and essentially we want to close that loop as quick as we can. And so we're going to talk about, basically this is where they have to verify they've learned. Okay, so I learned that when I get the puck on my stick, I have to find open ice. I have to get my head up. I take open ice, and if I'm going to make a pass, I got to find my player, and I got to find their tape, and I got to make sure that the lane is open. Sweet. That's awesome. What observation can you make about your behavior, rules, or stories? I have to understand that mistakes are a part of the game. And even though I made a mistake, I'm still a great player. And I did a lot of good things. And one mistake doesn't necessarily define my game. Sweet, we're growing as an individual. You can see how much more mature they already sound from the start of it. And then what do I need to do to not repeat this process, right? And so now we'll work through all the things they can do in practice, at home, and in the game setting to not repeat this behavior. And so I just want to share something with you, is doubt plus problems equals failure. Certainty plus problems equals success. And so I want to share this tool with you. It's a little sheet of paper, and I hope that it helps you work with it and your players through it. Okay. And that's important, is that coaches and parents, you're going to need to help your younger players work through these series of questions. They're not going to be able to do it on their own. Now, a college player or my pro guys could definitely do this on their own, but the younger generation, they're going to need help, and they need you to help them pull out of the negative emotional state. And I believe the reason why players can't reach peak performance is because they grip the stick and they're pulling out from past experiences the negative emotions, and so they don't have the trust or the confidence or the certainty to make plays, and so they retract to what we call a safe player. And we don't want a safe player. We want a player that's taking calculated chances and they believe in their abilities. And if you look at somebody like Patrick Kane, or you look at Connor Bedard, or you look at Austin Matthews, or even Connor McDavid, right? Those are players that are brimming with confidence, and they know that mistakes are a part of the game. They understand this process, and they're able to close a loop on a mistake, quickly learn from it, and then they move forward. And they're not defined by necessarily that one mistake. And they're also not defined by that one great play. They understand that it's a process, and they're enjoying that process. So this is X7 Hockey Talk. My name is John Swanson. This is the Own It series of how do we help players work through mental performance so that ultimately come tryouts or playoffs or that big moment, they can rise to the occasion, which we as parents and as coaches love to see. We never want to see a player working through the mental demons. We want to help them kind of break that out. And I think this tool is something that has really helped my players, and I hope it helps yours.